Hey there, this is Canadian Tech Videos. Today I'm going to set up my family's computer with Linux. What I'm going to be doing today is I am going to be installing and doing the things that I think are essential for running a Linux computer under the situation that this computer is used. And what situation is that? Well, this is the computer that sits in my family's kitchen. So mostly it's used for doing things like looking up recipes, maybe watching the odd YouTube video or two while you're cooking, and, paying the odd bill or two. So nothing too demanding. Now, technically, this computer would be able to be upgraded to Windows 11 from the Windows 10 that it's currently running, but I didn't want to do that because even under ideal situations, Windows 11 is not going to run very well on this computer without jumping through a bunch of hoops while setting it up and basically getting rid of a lot of the bloatware and everything else. So it's just a lot easier to put Linux on it, and this is going to be Linux that I think my family will be able to easily use without too much having to teach them new things. So let's take a look at this computer. And here is the computer. I thought I'd skip over that part, taking the outer shell off and get right to the good part of seeing that naked circuit board on the inside. All right, so what actually is this? This is a Lenovo Idea Center, and it is running a Ryzen 3 3200G, which is a 4-core, 4-thread CPU with a base clock of 3.6 gigahertz with a boost up to 4 gigahertz. It sips a very moderate 65 watts of power, which is good because all of this is run by a Hunt-Key power supply, which I can't say I'm very familiar with those, but this is only a 180 watt power supply, which means the upgrade path for this computer is very slim. Now, it does have Radeon Vega 8 graphics on board, and it has 8 gigabytes of RAM. Now, it can take dual channel memory, but yeah, looking at the price of RAM right now, I can't afford to sell a kidney to get a second stick of RAM for this computer, so it's staying as single channel right now. All right, so the first thing is I have to change out the hard drive, which I have actually upgraded in the past to get rid of the old spinning hard drive. But my sister saved a whole bunch of stuff on this computer, and, well, Windows being so wonderful, she can't figure out exactly where she saved it all, so I'm going to have to do a little thing of going through everything on this computer and figuring out exactly where she saved all this stuff so that I can take it off of that hard drive and reuse it. So for now, it gets this new hard drive. And since this computer never moves around, hard drive is just getting stuff down into the cage here. So yeah, well, we're ready to put Linux on it. All right, so I used Balena Etcher to flash the latest version of Linux Mint onto this USB drive. I have the computer hooked up through my capture card onto this monitor. So it is now time to fire this up and put Linux Mint onto this, and then I will go through and be able to take a look at all the programs that I'm going to be putting on here. Some of them come pre-installed. Anyways, if you're interested about flashing that with Balena Etcher or using Rufus, then I did do a video on that, which is linked down in the description. So let's get to work. All right, I've done my initial turn on of the computer here. I've got it set up, and now I've gone and now it's setting up my account. It is showing in 4K, so very, very tiny on this screen. I'll just finish setting this up, and when I get to making it a little bit bigger so you can actually read what's on the screen, I'll show you what's going on. All right, so adding new users to the computer, there is two different ways that you can do this. If you want to go old school and not use the graphical interface, you simply open up your terminal window and type sudo add user and then their screen name. So this is for my mom. Now one thing about that is you can't use any capital letters. I was having a little problem doing that earlier. New password is... It also messes me up that it doesn't show you typing anything when you're typing in the password here. And now my mom is added. So the other way to do this is go into the search bar and type user, and you go to users and groups. And as you can see, we've got my mom, who's standard user, me, who's an administrator. Now we're going to add one more standard user, and yeah, I'm not giving my family any administrator privileges, just users. So, when you do it this way, to add the password, you have to click on their file, go to no password set, click on that. And there we go. That is done. I'm reaching the end of my recording, and I just realized I forgot to do something that I very importantly was going to do as the first thing, so I'm jumping back in time to do this. And that is the firewall. The first thing you should do when you set up your Linux Mint computer is go into your firewall and turn it on. Why all of the Linux distros that I've tried always have the firewall disabled is a little bit baffling to me. Now I understand that some Linux users, the ones that are more technical, may not want the firewall on, but if it's just a casual user and they're just starting out using Linux, then they probably want the firewall on, but don't know that it's not on and probably don't know how to turn it on or off. Whereas a more savvy user would be able to simply just turn it off. I think that the distros should have the firewall on to start with. Now we can start looking at some of the programs that I think are essential for my family to use. First and foremost, which is pre-installed on here, is LibreOffice. Now I'm just going to add that to the desktop now. This, in my opinion, is probably the best alternative to Microsoft 365. You get writer document, calculator, spreadsheet, presentation, drawing stuff. Basically everything you could want under this for running anything that's equivalent to a Microsoft 365 document, and it's free. Another one that I like is Notes. Why do I like this? Well, it's kind of neat that you can just add a note on a sticky pan, kind of like a sticky note onto your screen here to remind you to do something at some point, and then you can just stick it into the corner of your screen or bottom of your screen or wherever you want it. Now for mail, Thunderbird Mail works perfect. It's exactly what I need. Now there's a couple of other programs here that I kind of like to have. For instance, Kate. What is Kate, you ask? Kate is basically an excellent Linux alternative to Notepad++. I use it a lot when, especially if you watch my other channel, I'm working on a basic program, a basic adventure game to run on a weird piece of hardware, and I'm using Kate to write a lot of the code before I transfer it over to one of my emulators and then onto real hardware. So, another thing that we can do is VLC, and you want to run 15 there, I believe, which is the stable version of VLC. And I use VLC a lot. It's my go-to program for playing files, video files and stuff. So, and I just got a couple others that I like to use. Now, of course, this is not a complete list. This is a list of things that I think my family will be able to get by with. Obviously, if they may run into needing some other programs, which of course I will help them with by getting onto this computer. But, you know, for now, I think this is a good starting point for them, that it should be just plug and play for them. It should be as seamless as possible going from Windows to Linux for them to use these programs. So the next one that I'm going to look at is OBS. Now, I don't know if that's one that they need, or but it's definitely one that I will use if I ever use this computer. And looking through the list here, number 16 is the one you want. I mean, you can type all that in and it would just go directly to it, but it's just a lot easier to bring up the main list and find the thing that you want and do it that way. Less typing. And the last one that I'm going to be putting on here is Discord. And number 1 is the one we want. And hopefully that is a good enough list to get them started. None of them actually play any games or anything on here. If they ever want to, I can start trying to download some of the other stuff like gaming engines and stuff, but this computer probably not the best for doing that. All I got left to do is go over to the other accounts and put this stuff onto desktop shortcuts on there, and then it's ready to be taken back upstairs and hooked up. Now, I realize with this computer, the fact that it only has 8 gigabytes of memory, of RAM, is one of the main reasons it's not going to run Windows 11 very well. But, yeah, as I said, I could upgrade the RAM and it would probably run Windows 11 not too badly. But, as I said earlier in the video, I can't afford to sell a kidney to get more RAM there, and I looked it up. Another 8 gigabyte stick of DDR4 RAM, the cheapest I could find, was pretty darn close to $100. And yeah, that's probably 3 times what this computer is worth. Besides that, they were out of stock everywhere. So hopefully Linux Mint will not be too much of a change for my family to start using. hopefully this is a good jumping off point for the programs that they're going to need. I guess I will find out. And if they run into anything that they need other programs downloaded on here, I'll just do that for them. I'll be interested to find out if there are other programs that they need to continue doing the things that they were doing on the other computer. I can't think of anything that they would need other programs for, but all right, there we go. We have everything set up for all 3 accounts here. All the shortcuts are set up. The only thing I have left to do is there's a bunch of files that I downloaded off of the computer before I did this. Now I'm going to stick those files back on here. Basically just a lot of things that my mom has saved and whatnot. So, and some stuff that my sister saved. Like I said, my sister hasn't found everything that she saved on the other drive, so I'll probably be putting more stuff on in the future. But for now, we simply as plugging in the USB stick that I saved everything onto and just dropping it right onto the desktop here. All right. And that is how I've set up this computer. So what I put on there are basically just the essential programs that are going to allow my family to seamlessly move from the Windows experience that they've been having over to the Linux experience without too much having to relearn things. I know that there is a lot of choice out there on Linux, but knowing my family, this is basically the best programs I could think of to put on for them. So I'm sure that many people would have many suggestions for alternatives to use, but these are the ones that I think my family will be able to work with. If they have problems with it, then I will look for other programs that may be easier for them to use. This is kind of using them as a guinea pig for how easy it is for somebody that's not at all technical to move over to Linux. So yeah, and also this is a good case point of a computer that technically could run Windows 11, but would be so poor at it, it may as well be a computer that won't run it. So this would be one that would likely, after trying to use it for a little while with Windows 11, would an average user would just buy a new computer and this one would go off to recycling. So hopefully it will run for many, many, many more years on Linux. All right, well, this is the part of the video where I have to say thank you to my patrons whose names are going by on the screen right now. If you're interested in joining my Patreon, there's a link down in the description. And yes, it is a 2-for-1. You not only get to support this channel, you also get to support my retro channel, Canadian Retro Things. And you get perks for both channels. All right, and if you haven't checked out my Canadian Retro Things channel, there's also a link to that down there where I work on mostly 70s and 80s computers. All right, well, that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget liking, commenting, subscribing to the channel are all things that help the YouTube algorithm get this video out to people. So yeah, please do all that, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.